Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett, joined by Kyle, as always, but also by NotParadox. Welcome back, dude.
Hey, guys, and thank you so much. I always love being on Into the Nexus, and I was pretty excited for this one for many reasons, but one, because I get to talk more about this tier list. No.
Yeah, man, you get some mileage out of that. It was funny. We ended up talking about it without you last week. Needless to say, folks, it's going to come back up again because we just kept getting asked to. Everyone was like, hey, you and NotParadox are friends. What do you think? So we're like, all right,
yeah,
we'll talk
it's an interesting one. It got a lot of odd traction in places that I've never seen like posts or anything get traction in, which is weird for me because I even have a video that says like I hate tier lists. So I do think it's kind of funny that my tier list is the thing that like is getting random traction because I don't really like tier lists. I just did it. I even say in the video I did it because like the tier list meme of 2019 was kind of a fun thing. So it was like the last day of 2019. But it does have like it is information that it's not a meme at all. But I mean, memey. But yeah, it's interesting. So it got a lot of random. It got places.
I think they're fine. What I liked about yours, at least in places I saw it getting talked about, was that folks seem to actually be paying attention to like the quantifiers you gave your tier list and being like, hey, this is solo queue. I'm prioritizing ease of play and like tiltability. Like you brought in so many quantifiers, and a lot of the places that I saw it discussed, it seemed like people were actually taking that into account, where a lot of times I think the nature of a tier list, it's very easy to just look at the image, take it at face value, and start yelling your opinions at it.
Oh, yeah. I remember actually when I was making that tier list video where I said I hate tier lists, I remember there was someone who made a post that was like, hey, this tier list is my silver tier list. Like, I've been through silver on a couple accounts. Like, I sit around gold. And yes, I can't say anything about gold because I haven't passed it. I haven't won in gold. Like, I haven't really gotten past, but he goes, I've gotten past silver multiple times. Here's my silver tier list. And it got torn to shreds. I'm like, guys, if there's any expert for someone who knows how to get out of silver, it's this guy. Like, he's been through silver multiple times. Like, this guy knows what's up. But it's just funny sometimes with tier lists. People get so opinionated. So just be understanding that this is still subjective. And I do have some very specific criteria when picking things in it. But yeah, overall, I mean, I've had a lot of fun with that one. That one kind of got brought up in a multiple ways just because I get asked the same question like a million times, and I get asked like the same thing like a million times. It's just like, I'm in blank rank, what do I do, right? Or I'm in low rank, what do I do? And then my favorite, I think, was I got this comment on so many of my videos as I was doing videos for everything, which was, but you're in Masters, try this out in silver, and then I'll be laughing, right? Like, I got that type of comment so much that I'm like, fine, bronze to Masters challenge. Like I said, I would never do it. I did it. Took me 2.5 weeks, and then I finished it, recorded everything, scheduled it out over the course of 2 months, and then every comment. I just got a new comment about it where like now in all of my silver videos, people are like, oh, but try to do this without a 3-level lead. I'm like, I got a 3-level lead. I said, I'm getting them in every game. Like, I don't know what you guys want from me. Like, there's just no winning sometimes. So I just have to like accept it and realize that there's just going to be people that are always going to find something, and you just deal with it. Yeah, so that was just so funny. This whole thing was a response to answer such common questions, and now I get another common comment that I'm like, all right, fine, I'll just go back to my main.
Well, welcome to content creation therapy, where one comment will stick in your craw and you will think about it for a week on end. We all tell each other not to do it, but we all do it.
Well, and you have a new battle because you scheduled it out. Like, people are thinking there's this NotParadox epidemic happening where you're just in silver all the time crushing fools, when you made your videos in 2 weeks and you're just sharing them out over time like a content creator would.
Yeah. And so the crazy part too is, so the bronze to high gold was actually a weekend. It was like 30 games over a weekend. And that was scheduled for like a month and a half. So that does look way worse than it actually is. And then the other one on my main account, I didn't record most of that, which was from plat all the way up, because a lot of the games just didn't really meet what I wanted them to do. Either I just played a lot of the same heroes, because like Joanna, for example, people now just they meme about how I always make Joanna videos, and I've got like 5 out, and then like I'll bring out a new one every month. But it's because I use Joanna so much as a hero to carry with, just because she handles the thing that people forget, which is wave clear. And so it's just funny to see that like half the stuff that I did to carry, I didn't even record, because it was just like, and so the things that lasted the longest was everything that happened over a weekend. I literally went from bronze to high gold in a weekend. And it's like I didn't try to like linger on it. It's just that, I scheduled it out because it was still really good content. I mean, it answered the most common question I had, or concern that I had, was people that just kept asking, oh, what do you do in this rank? What do you do in this rank? And it's like, that's it. That's what I do.
What do I do when I get teamed with a Cho'Gall one trick? Definitely not a very personal question that I had to deal with yesterday.
Oh, no.
Well, there is
it a 2 trick if it's Cho'Gall?
Well, I had a friend. His name was Taryn. He doesn't play HOTS very much anymore. He would only play Gall. He would solo queue, and in Hero League. This was when Hero League was a thing. And he would hover Gall and say, guys, I'm really good at Gall. If you guys can just play Cho and just kind of run around, as long as you're kind of in the vicinity of fights, we're going to win. Dude had a 65% win rate with Gall in Hero League, solo queuing, and his Gall was level 450. His second highest level was 37. This guy only played Gall. I don't know how he did it, but his name is Taryn. You can look up his account. And it was really, really funny. I was like, this is baffling. But to answer your question, I have no idea.
Man, well, here's to you, solo queue Gall main. You're impressing the hell out of me. That's great, man. Well, I mean, since you've been on, I mean, there's more to NotParadox than a tier list, and there's more to heroes than coming up with our own opinions of what the tier list of the heroes are. It's been a bit, actually, one of the longest times it's been in a while since you've been on our show. So how are all the changes treating you? I mean, let's start with experience orbs for the new Nexus Anomaly, which has already been changed rather drastically since it was implemented before the holiday break.
I've made probably 12 experience videos and then just deleted them. I don't really know where to go with it. So I guess I'll start by just saying, like, most of the changes that Blizzard makes, I can point in a direction and go, I see why they did that. It answers a problem that we had. And like going back to the ammo changes, whether you agreed or disagreed with the ammo changes, it opened up the roster pool of the solo lane, because the solo lane for the longest time was literally 3 heroes. And if you didn't play those 3 heroes, then you would run out of ammo very quickly, and they would just endlessly push and get a huge advantage, and then your team would just win with that huge advantage. So they changed it. They ditched ammo, and suddenly we have solo lane has the largest roster pool of any other lane, and almost every hero in the roster has a place right now. So in the healthiness of the game, I think they solved the problem. We go to things like the other experience change. We were seeing a 71 to 79% win rate of whoever won the first objective of the game because of the old experience changes, or the old experience where you destroy a fort, you get 500 experience. Actually, it was even higher before that too. They kept trying to ditch snowballing. And then after that, I was actually talking, when this whole experience, the initial experience change was happening, I was talking to Bakery and Dignitas, and we were going over with their analysts trying to figure out how big of an issue is snowballing. And they were like, it's really annoying in the pro league because everyone's starting to play a little too safe. Because if you make even the slightest mistake in the early game, you take a fountain too late or something, and then suddenly you don't have it for an objective, you lose that first objective. And if it's on Sky Temple, then you're going to be level 9s when the enemies are level 10s for the next objective, which means you're also going to lose that objective, which means that you're going to be 13 to 10s, which means that you're going to lose the double objective, which means that you're going to be 16s to 13s, and they're going to close out the game. And they said that's how every single Sky Temple game goes. And they said there's no way around it. And they said it's just infuriating that it comes down to that. And he goes, so our analysts have found that it's a 79% win rate for whoever wins that first objective. Well, then they changed the experience. And while a lot of people disagreed with it, it actually solved that problem quite a bit. And everyone said that, well, games are going to be, and I even said this, and I think I said this on the podcast while we were at BlizzCon, that I said games are going to last a lot longer. And they really didn't. Games are still closing out before 20 in Masters, Grandmasters all the time. And games tend to be the same time. And I was like, so I was wrong. And I was like, okay, so it did solve that problem. When we get to the movement speed change and the experience globe change, I am not 100% sure what problem they were solving, and that's okay. Change can be change. It can freshen things up. But this experience globe change has just been an odd one for me because it made Abathur really bad, but they never buffed him to compensate. It made, as far as like Asmodan and all the other ones, they ended up fixing that. They corrected that. But after they fixed that, the only thing that I've really found that it's done is added transparency to the game. For new players, for example, in one of my silver videos, I said, I'm freezing this lane and I'm zoning this guy from experience, and he probably doesn't even know what I'm doing. And everyone in the comments was mad at me. They're like, why didn't you tell him what you did? Because he sat there the whole time missing out on experience and he never realized it. And I said, I'm not going to message a guy I just beat and say, you did this wrong. I said, no one takes that well. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I said, I'm showing you guys in this video what I'm doing. Well, now with the experience, people realize what's happening. They're going, oh, I'm being zoned out from experience. I get that now.
Well, if that isn't a perfect description of the lack of manners online, then I don't know what is. It's like I cut someone off in traffic. Oh, you should get out of the car afterwards and explain to him that if he had sped up, you couldn't have done that to him. I'm gonna get shot.
I was like, I'm not going to do that. And a lot of people ask me too, they're like, why don't you tell people what they're doing wrong in game? I'm like, oh no. I said, I'm not going to tell anyone on my team. I'm just going to be tilting my team. I don't do any of that. But yeah, so I'm like, that's the only problem that I can see is that maybe it was just answering a transparency issue. Because when they kind of announced anomalies, right, I didn't actually know what they were talking about. So I was like, all I heard was anomalies are going to be these things they change the Nexus around in unique ways and make it to where there's these new types of play styles. And I'm like, oh, that'll be awesome. Like there's gonna be like meteors that drop down that you can pick up and like summon infernals and lanes or whatever. And I was like, this is gonna be cool. And then they're like experience changes. I'm like, I don't get it. And I was like, that doesn't feel like an anomaly. It feels like it's just answering a transparency issue. But then it also does hurt a lot of people. Like Abathur, I played him 8 games after they made the experience changes. Do not play him anymore. He was my main. Highest amount of games played, highest win rate in Grandmasters, all that. He feels really weird to play right now, and he feels very, very risky, and you're not rewarded for that risk. So there's still balance that needs to be done, and I'm worried that there's not enough like information anymore, because like with the movement speed changes, I've been tracking and I only have so much data, right? I have heroes profile data. All of the non skill shot heroes, all the heroes that rely less on skill shots have been moving up in the win rates on the as far as that goes, and all of the ones that rely on skill shots have been moving down, and we're not seeing any balance to adjust for this. And I'm tracking by Masters players. So we can't even use the excuse of, oh, well, those are more difficult to place. They're naturally going to be lower. I'm tracking by Masters players, and that's still the case. So it did hurt people moving faster, because what people think is, oh, well, Masters will be better at hitting people even if they move faster, except for Masters are also the ones that are moving faster, which means that they're better at dodging things. And now that they move faster, it's easier to dodge things. And so it's just like there's some adjustments that haven't been made yet. So I've been holding off on the experience change video and the movement speed change video because I was waiting for balance to see what happened. And I don't know. I think it's odd because I can't see the problem it's fixing other than transparency. And I think there's other options for fixing transparency. But hey, I mean, I'm usually on Kyle's side of stuff like this, where it's like, let's see what happens. Let's just go with it, come up with a new strategy and roll. I'm just playing. I saw that post on Discord.
I mean, Kyle, it's been something you and I have been talking about for weeks now. And like, I think I like the way that this does bring that transparency that you're talking about, Paradox. Like, I think I've made that clear over the last few episodes, is that even though they pulled back really far from what the initial change was, like I would have, I get what you're saying when you're like, oh, I don't know if this is an anomaly. It's just fixing transparency. That's what it is now. When it first rolled out, I would have called that was certainly,
that was a change, and it hit range people really hard. We had one game where Sergeant Hammer had 0 experience contributed for like the first half of the game, and we just thought that was so odd.
Yeah, exactly. And so now, now that it's here, and it certainly seems like it's here to stay. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, I think, in how you're talking about it. Like I don't know. It's a dance with me when I'm talking about experience scopes at this point, because I really like it, but I also don't want it to sound like I believe it has massively changed the game, because I think since their adjustment, it really hasn't. But I think
completely agree.
I think there's value in the transparency. And I do, and it has changed it in that, like, you can go get the XP after a minion died. Like, there's not a huge window, but there's a window which, as before, there wasn't one. And so in terms of showing you how XP works, where you should be to get that XP, I think it's doing a really good job. And for that reason, I like it. And I realize there's still issues with passively soaking. You still can't do it from a bush, basically, unless a minion wanders into a bush for some reason. But so there are slightly more nuanced ways that it has permanently changed the XP game for Heroes of the Storm. But I don't know. As much as I didn't love the change when it hit, and this is gonna, I don't know, this almost sounds like, I don't know, it's all hindsight 2020, right? I wish they had kept it in a little bit longer. But I have a feeling they were staring down the barrel of the holiday break and going, are we just going to leave this in unchanged while the whole team is out of the office for weeks? Because they've done that in the past. If you remember 2 years ago, I think it was the 18 to 19. Was that it, Kyle? That was post the XP change.
Mm-hmm.
The community lost their minds.
Oh, yeah.
It reached fever pitch. It was vitriolic, and it was... Oh, no, that would have been 17.
I mean, but did you see what was going on? Because I had a post, and someone else... And what was his name? He was the Europe streamer. He had a post as well, and we showed that the way that they had it set up, good, like Masters and Grandmasters could essentially deny you an entire lane of experience forever if you take a fort too early. It was pretty bad, but and then they fixed it. So that was good. But
yeah, but that's the kind of thing where it's like, again, I don't have insider information. They're not telling me that this is the reason they made the change, but all things right, being what they are, and looking kind of at the history of the game, and specifically the history of changes to heroes during the holiday break, that's just where my brain goes. That's where I go. I go, I bet they wanted to err on the side of player happiness and safety in terms of their change, and leave the game in a state that they were pretty sure the community would be more happy with. And as you said at the very top about your own darn content, you can't please everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And avoids the outbreak of the oddities. Like, I know after that particular XP change, they left too much XP on just the towers, and taking a fort was detrimental because you would feed the enemy team.
Mm-hmm.
So I was Nazebo farming towers for the entire 2-month break until they changed things.
That is
literally
yeah.
Laning, running over, tower action, and then immediately running to the next lane, tower action, getting a 2-level lead. And that's how it was done.
Yeah. There was actually a strategy for a while where people would get the forts down to 5% health. So they would destroy the towers, they would get the fort down to 5% health, and they wouldn't take it until they were ready to take all 3 of the forts, so that they had that control of the map. But yeah, there was a point where, like, people, you should never be punished for taking something. And I think that's where they were like, you know what? Okay, we're going to fix this. You're going to at least get that passive experience, which is going to be equivalent to the experience you're going to be missing. And you can still get that experience that you're missing if you just push it all the way in. And it was like, once they did that, all those wonky strategies just stopped. So, but yeah, I completely agree, Garrett. Like I feel like the experience changes when they first made the anomaly were pretty drastic, and they were unique. Like your tank had to pick up those globes because your range couldn't get to them, and your range would get risky, and that made the solo lane. All the range heroes in the solo lane were like, whoa, we're getting zoned out really, really easy now. So it took a lot of like the old bullies like Zag and stuff, and then kind of forced them to get a little bit closer. I like it. I thought that was an okay change, but yeah, I think right now after they made the other change where like killing the minions gives you the experience anyways and all that, it doesn't feel very different from what it was in the past. Now it's just globes appearing. I think outside of like the soaking in bushes is the only major change.
Yeah,
now.
so it feels different for Abathur and Lost Vikings.
That's pretty much it. Like, yeah.
Which yeah, I again, it's I don't want to get I got pretty philosophical. I feel like last week I don't want to do it again, but to me, so much of the debate around changes in Heroes of the Storm is the push and pull between the goal is for a team-based game, and yet the community always seems to kind of be wanting to rein more control into like their own solo ability. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, I always look at that as the most like up in the sky view of Heroes of the Storm and the challenge of balancing this game. So yeah, it's interesting. So, but what about the December 16th patch? You know, things like Oriole Resurrects and Samuro getting, pretty drastically changed up. Any big takeaways from that patch, or are you still kind of doing your own post Abathur thing?
So I'm testing Samuro a lot to kind of see where I want to put him after all of those changes, because they were very different. And I've been talking to Samuro mains, and they're in the process of kind of relearning a lot of stuff. I played him right before they made the change and after they made the experience change, and you honestly could soak all three lanes because you can arrive at the lanes right as the minions are dying, soak up the experience of the minions that already died because your clones soak, and then your clones would despawn. You had just enough time to do all of that, and you would have time to move around and get to wherever, so you could soak all three lanes and then still get places. It was now that they've changed him, I don't know if they've done enough to make him strong enough to account for what they did just nerf, but at the same time, I always was of the thought that he was one of the strongest heroes in the game. If you were good at him, he's just difficult. Oriole Resurrect, I still think is busted. I don't know what anyone can say about it. I said she was busted. I've played her until she started getting permabanned. 100% win rate on my main account, 95% win rate on my Smurf. She's absolutely dominant. Resurrect is insane. There's no ult in the game that has that much value, and it's so strong to the point that in scrims right now there is a what do you call that? Like, not like a treaty, but like
a gentleman's agreement.
There's a gentleman's agreement not to play her, because everyone agrees that it's going to get nerfed, and if you're going to play her, play with the other ult, just so that people don't practice something that's going to get nerfed. I said in the beginning, she's just very, very strong. She was very strong before she got that Resurrect change, because if you look at her win rates ahead of time, it was 53%. Then she got the Resurrect change, which this is like one of the few times that an ultimate has actually moved up by 20% in win rate. It literally went from 40% to 60% off of just like that. And they did 3 major changes to it. I think that what they're going to do is leave 2 of them and then shrink down one other one a little bit. But yeah, she's dominant. As far as the other things in the December 16th, was that when they did the Zagara change? I need to double check that, or was that earlier?
This was just a slight buff to her, level 16?
That was just the auto attack. Okay. Yeah. And then they nerfed Thing of the Deep a little bit during that as well. Yeah, the rest of that wasn't too crazy. The rest of the changes they made in there, the Smurf reworks, I'm working on that one. I do see more people using his ult just for wave clear though, which I think is kind of interesting because now it's in like a 25-second cooldown. So that is kind of interesting, but I'm working on it. He's a difficult hero to just put a pin in and say he's good now or he's not good now. So I've been it's going to take a lot of testing for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think of this kind of slow push for Brightwing to become an arcane flare machine? And
I like it.
What do you think that kind of does to things like Lucio, who kind of feels like he's running rampant now that we got rid of Ariel?
I mean, I like Brightwing. I'm always up for trying to make Brightwing more active, because Brightwing for the longest time was just like a passive Lucio, and now you need to be landing Qs. A lot of her builds can form into the Q build. That's the only reason that I'm like kind of iffy about it, is like when someone's like, oh, what build do you go on Brightwing? I'm like, well, it's either Bribe Wing, which is bribe and then Q build. It's either Teleport Wing, which is teleport and then Q build, or it's like I just find like all my builds revolve around Q. But she does have situational talents here and there. Like, let's say, for example, and this is why I kind of like her talent tree so much, is like you get to 13, I believe, where you get the 3 different choices for E. You can either prevent burst, you can give boosts of movement speed to like someone like a Garrosh to set up a good fight, or you can take that 75% increased healing and then just full heal someone with a Z. Like you put your E, your Z, and then an R on someone, full heal. It's crazy. I mean, you have an ancestral healing on whatever the cooldown of your Z is. It's pretty crazy. So, but I like Brightwing's activity right now. I like the direction that they're pushing Brightwing into. That's just my opinion.
So what are you personally playing nowadays? Other than Johanna?
Other than Johanna, like I've been trying to switch more to assassins. I found that a lot of people, or at least a lot of my videos lately have been kind of solo lane, tanks, healers. So I've been trying to do more assassin stuff. So I've been playing like Zagara a lot lately, just because actually, to be honest, I've been playing a lot of weird stuff. But I've been playing a lot of Zagara because after her change, I've been playing Rexar, but I can't really talk about that too much just because it's again another solo lane one.
Oh, I'm so sorry, listeners at home. There's 2 of me on the show today, apparently.
Yeah, and then this is a really wild one, and so I'm gonna apologize in advance. I have not lost a game with this, and I've played it quite a lot lately. But I don't know if I want to like release this on the world in like a video and then have a bunch of people do it and then everyone just be like, this is so stupid. I've been playing Rhaegar solo lane a lot because I've been like, we're coming back into like double healer meta a little bit, and it's really dominating. Like the people are running Uther in the solo lane, people are running Uther as main tank. Then we've been seeing a lot of like Lilies thrown into other comps just to like blind enemies and have that double heal. I've been running Rhaegar in the solo lane because they just gave him a bunch of talents on level 1, like they've updated them. This was a while back, and some of them are pretty good. Like if you never are expecting to see your team, like if you're in a Dragonshire, you can just go like the bite build and you're getting your mana back, you're getting your health back, you're lowering your cooldowns. Your bite has a 3-second cooldown. It's like you do a lot of stuff with that bite, and it's really scary. And then when you do end up meeting your team, you've got double healer. You can go either ult if you want at that point. I mean, having your team, you come in for a flank, drop down a slow, and give your whole team movement speed and lifesteal, you're gonna wipe through most team fights. So it's fun. But yeah, I've just been playing like fun stuff for the most part, because like I've already hit all the goals that I wanted to hit, so now I'm kind of just having a bit of fun. But Zagara is probably my favorite for like, I still kind of want to play serious, but I want to have fun. So I've been playing a lot of Zagara, I would say.
So sell me on Zagara, because I have been off of Zagara is, I think, still technically my most played hero. I may have passed her on Rexar, but there was a long time where that was the only thing I wanted to play if I could help it. And I've been off of Zagara for a while now. What brings you to the Zagara?
I mean, there's just two things. There's level 1 talent, level 16 talent. That's it. Level 1 talent, your roaches have a 3-second lower cooldown, 30% more health. Level 16 talent, your roaches do percent health damage. And your Hydralisk does percent health damage. That's it. That's like all it is. But when they gave your roaches percent health damage, roaches attack pretty fast. There's 2 of them, and you can have them permanently out with that level 1 talent. So if you can get to 16, she's already kind of a bully too. So you likely are going to get to 16, but her downside before was the longer the game went, you're not really sure how the team fights are going to go. She's got a pretty good team fight right now. So I've tried a bunch of different builds. I feel like I've finally got it down to one solid idea of what I want with a couple situational talents. And like her team fight's not bad. You're slowing enemies with Q. So they're like slowly moving around the fight. You're doing percent health. Permanent. I mean, those roaches are going to stay out the whole time, and you've just got stuff going on all the time with her. And she's just kind of like an overwhelming. She's like Lunara, but safer, where it's just like everyone's taking damage all the time, but you're always slowing everyone. And then you also have like that ult that you can either set up a fight or just have infinite mana and health. Like there's so many ways to look at her. I just really like Zagara right now. I don't think that she's like top tier by any means of the tier list because her damage is so chaos oriented. It's kind of like Nazeebo where you don't really get to focus the damage where you want it to go. It just kind of goes everywhere. So I don't think she's like top tier, but she is a lot of fun and she's pretty good for moving up in rank just because you just drop stuff out, watch things die. Pretty much.
Well, great. If there was one role I needed some more options in, it was solo laning. So thank you. Thank you very much, Paradox.
Yeah.
Oh man. Kyle, you know what I'm going to be playing now.
Oh yeah. No, the epidemic continues.
No, it just keeps going. I finally took Sylvanas into Storm League this week.
Oh.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
It's going very well. I'm on a bit of a climb at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm still.
I like her. She's banned in high ranks. So just as you start getting up there to you hit that master's level, you're gonna need to pick a new hero. But yeah. She's fun.
If I make it that far, I'll be too busy celebrating to worry about not getting my Sylvanas. But
then you'll just switch back to Rexar. Everyone will get mad at you.
Right now, those are the two I'm just swapping between in my drafts because
those are good ones.
I actually had Rexar counterpick the other day though on Volsky. I was like, no, that's mine.
No.
The word is finally out on Rexar. Some people are actually picking him, but it's still not that bad.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm jumping in now. I'm gonna go for it. You got your time with NotParadox. I'm gonna seize the show now. NotParadox. What is going on in High Diamond? Why are Grandmasters being matched with Plats? And what should I do to advance past this bizarre world I find myself in?
So we have a really weird thing. There is a big issue with smurfing. And the way that Blizzard approached at trying to counter smurfing likely made it a lot worse because and I've heard a lot of people say things like this where most people just want to stay in diamond right now. Low diamond, you get real games. The higher up you get in diamond, the more likely you're going to either get a very rainbow draft because there's not a lot of grandmasters playing on their grandmaster accounts because they can't play with their friends. So they're playing on other accounts. So then the grandmasters that are playing have to get queued up with other people in lower ranks. So what they'll do is they'll try to take someone and they'll try to even out the game. So you'll have like Grandmaster like 10 on one side. Then you have like Grandmaster 50 on another side. And those are the only Grandmasters that are within that range that they can even put together. Then everyone else is between like Masters and Diamonds. They put a bunch of Masters and Diamonds together. And then they go, well, that's not quite fair enough because we have a high Grandmaster over here and a mid Grandmaster over here. So we're going to take one of the diamonds, move them over, and we're going to take a platinum and we're going to put them up here. That should make the teams fair. And that's pretty much what's happening. And it's unfortunately, it's being caused by Smurfs. And it was something that is a bit of a problem. And there's the only real answer, and this is actually I said this as a prediction at BlizzCon back when Storm League was coming. I said I love everything about Storm League, except I'm worried about smurfing. And that's really what's been happening, is just people are moving up all of their friends, and then they get their account to high rank and they can't play with their friends anymore. So then they make another account, they move up their friends further, and then your friends can't play with you anymore. So then your friends make an account, and then it's just a never-ending cycle of that. And even if they could play with each other, we still had more smurfing than we've ever had. So it's just wild right now because not a lot of people are playing on their main accounts. So there's not enough people in these high ranks to fill out the thing. So high diamond is a weird place. I'll just say that. High diamond, masters, grandmasters, all of those are weird places right now.
Okay, well,
I've decayed my account down to low diamond, and I love it. It's the best decision I've ever made.
Oh no.
So excuse me for a moment because I need to start typing my angry YouTube comment to NotParadox. You smurfed. You did your bronze to masters challenge.
I did. I'm a hypocrite. I'll take it. No, yeah, I mean, I did it because so many people were asking me questions and it was for the sake of content. But yeah, I mean, I will take the blame. I smurfed for content, which if some people would say that's better because I'm doing it so that other people don't need to. Some people would say that's worse because I'm doing it to grow and it's I gain personal value from it. But yeah, I mean, I will take part of the blame in smurfing. I did a bronze to masters challenge. I will definitely call myself a hypocrite. I do not like smurfs in this game, but I did it. I don't play on my smurf very much anymore. I usually just play on it when friends are joining the game, and I don't want them to go against people that are going to stomp them. So I will usually play heroes that I don't play very often on my smurf. So, and I'll try to not cover everything. But yeah, I will take it, honestly.
Well, I thought I had this thing figured out, right? Because Smurfs, it's been around for a while. I do a account check, down the line anytime a game starts. I find the plat and I see if they're named like John Wick. I know that was made like a year ago, so no big deal. That's a Smurf. Or if you look at their account history and see like everyone below 15, all right, that's a Smurf. But you get the guy who's not a Smurf plat, but they're convinced that they're the carry assassin. But when ETC's mosh pitting, they're afraid of him and don't attack him because plat is this weird, like, I'm not going to get blamed for anything sort of place where I got to get a level lead on Thrall so that I can go crazy on the back line and kill what I need to get to by being absolutely insane and crazy, like just acting like a wild man. That's what I got to do on Thrall in the late game. But that is too scary for the plats. So I'm seesawing wildly between like Johanna because I think this is a Smurf and I need to protect them because they're going to be amazing, or should I be Diablo because I need to like kill things as tank because this assassin will not.
I honestly don't even know anymore. I just don't trust anyone. I honestly don't. I don't trust anyone. Like one of my favorite heroes is Tastar, and I like rarely play him anymore unless I'm queuing with someone, just because it's like I just don't trust anyone. If I'm gonna play Tastar, I'm gonna play like a really selfish build where I'm just going laser and tickling people to death. But it's like it's so hard to know. I mean, even people that are like higher ranks or even Smurfs, like when I was playing on my Smurf, I even said during some videos, I'm like, oh, this guy I'm going against is a Smurf. I know exactly who he is. And like even some Smurfs you can beat just because people get so used to playing on their Smurf that they get rusty and they are expecting mistakes and they don't see them. So surprisingly, you can do really well against a lot of Smurfs. But yeah, it's a whole mess. And that's it. I mean, I don't really look at profiles usually. I don't look at how many levels or what level they are, or how many games they've played or anything like that, or what rank they are. I try to just look at like what they play to make sure they're playing something comfortable. Because like for us, we have pretty wide rosters. I've seen your roster. You've got a pretty wide roster. It's like I would rather have everyone play something that they're comfortable with, and then me just fill in. That's kind of what I look for in the profile, but yeah, man, that I know that rank that you're in. I've been there. It's wild right now. You do get some, almost every game is just like they're just trying to make it work. And if you get the higher GM on your team, you know you're gonna get someone that's like plat. And it is the same too. Like the plat players sometimes will be like, you guys are all bad. And then like it's like, oh, my friend, like calm that down a little bit. Like let's I'm not gonna like bring up rank for you, but
you don't want to pull it. You want to be a good guy, but when you're getting taught by your plat Anduin, you're kind of like you're dying inside a little bit. So I got to ask a tough question because I feel like I'm looking at Marvel bodies and I'm hitting the gym every day. Do I need to juice? Like, do I just gotta like give up this natty life and get some friends? And is that how you do master? Like,
I mean, it's. You can still go up in rank. I mean, you have to always look at it like, and these ranks always feel bad because it's like you're diamond. You want to play against diamonds and beat diamonds and move up in rank, right? You don't. It gets so frustrating when you're playing in diamond and you're like, you're going against grandmasters and you're going, why is this happening? Like, I just want to move up in rank. I don't want to play against pros to move up in rank. But the cool part is you're in a good spot because whenever the enemy gets a grandmaster, you're going to get a grandmaster. So like that's kind of cool. You can backpack on them. So if you do see the grandmaster playing Vala, you could be like, I'm going to play Ariel or something. You know, I'm going to maybe do that. But honestly, it's up to you. I find right now, if you're playing what's enjoyable and you're playing consistently well, you'll move up in rank because if you're playing what's enjoyable, you won't tilt. Right, you're playing with your friends, you won't tilt unless your friends tilt you and then don't play with your friends, or just playing like a mode that doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, just you don't need to play with. I mean, unless you really want to, unless you want to like combo with someone. But you got to be careful who you play with because you're also in the worst rank for playing with friends. Because if you gain a couple ranks, you can't play with your friends anymore, and if they're higher ranked than you, you can't play with them anyways. So you're in a really weird spot for that because as you approach masters, you're like you're in a really, and then when you play with someone that's a little lower ranked than you, boom, you rank up, you can't play with them anymore.
And when you crest masters, aren't you just in the exact same position you were in before? You're just now the masters being flown into these rainbow games.
That's all it is. Now you have to be the one so like now you're the one that gets diamonds on your team. You know, before you were the one that got masters on your team. Now you're the one that gets diamonds on your team, and that's the only thing that changes. But also you can't play with friends now. Like that's literally that's why so many people are like, I can't tell you how many people are just dodging to lower their rank, decaying. Mockery even explained this to me, and I don't mean to like call him out, but he said it multiple times on his stream. He says that he's purposely decaying like 3 of his accounts, just so that they are all out of masters so you can continue playing with friends. And it's like, that's, I switch between 2 accounts and that's the same thing. It's like, and I mean, it's almost not smurfing when all of your accounts are the same rank, but that's also the problem, right? It's also still the problem because you're playing and we don't have enough people playing at these high ranks to even like fill these games.
We're getting artificially trying to fix the problem, right? Like, we've talked about this so many times, and I always end with this has got to be a nightmare if you're on the team trying to figure out a way to deal with this.
Oh yeah, like my answer to this is something that they can never do, and so I'm looking at them going like, I feel sorry because I can't think of anything better than going back to Hero League and Team League, and I know they can't do that. So because I'm like, Hero League for when you want to play seriously, Team League when you want to play with your friends, let's just go back. But I understand why they can't. I completely understand why they can't. And so outside of that, I have no idea, which is why I have all the respect in the world for them trying stuff. You know,
well, we've been on this journey together, but it was a popular Reddit thread this week that Hero League should be brought back. What are the reasons that you understand why it can't be?
I think it's just look at the queue times we're getting in Storm League right now. I can group up with any sort of rank of people and I'll get a game in under 10 minutes. You know, that's when I was playing in Hero League and and Hero League was the last league that I actually really tried for Grandmasters, and I got Grandmasters. I enjoyed it. I liked that climb because I felt like I could see my own performance more so than, oh, they have two Smurfs with one person, so it's good luck because the matchmaking is just off. Hero League was the last time I felt like I could see my own performance improve. So that was when I really enjoyed climbing. But the queue times were pretty bad. Like I was doing homework while I was in queue. I had queue times longer than games, 30 to 40 minute queue times when you're up in that Grandmaster level. It was pretty brutal. So unless they lax the rule a lot and go back to Hero League, but they just lax the rule where we can still get wild games, or just incentivize Hero League more so in some ways. I don't see them having enough people to separate those two groups, Hero League and Team League. That's just my personal thought on it. I would love to see it go back to that, but I don't think there's enough, because those queue times were getting pretty long. I mean, I got a lot of work done during those queue times, but man,
yeah,
a lot of people started playing Hearthstone on my Heroes Friends list. It was wonderful.
Oh yeah,
I had friends that played both the Blizzard games that I love, but. It's, I mean, yeah, those queues before the change were brutal. You went on Twitch and most of the thumbnails were lobbies. It was the queue time going up.
That's the rough part. I think that was the last time I really trusted when I saw high ranked people. And I was like, yeah, like this person earned it because he got here by himself. Like that was the last time I really felt rank like truly mattered. I think right now, if you do it solo, oh yeah, it's brutal, but it's hard to tell that now. So it's really, really difficult. I just tell people, do it for your own personal gain, right? Like if you're doing it to brag to your friends, don't do it for that, because it's just going to stress you out and people are just going to say you got boosted. I said, do it for yourself. And I see a lot of people message me and say, hey, I moved up from this rank to this rank. And it's like, right on, man. Like keep at it. I said, but like, don't tilt out, you know, like, and actually one guy right now, I can see him. He was playing Heroes of the Storm. And I said, and he was like, oh, I'm on a 5-game winning streak. And I said, you tend to streak up and down a lot. I said, I want you to start stopping whenever you get 2 losses in a row and just play something else. I said, because if you don't, you're going to tilt. And it's going to look like my Overwatch win rate, which is literally W's, L's every single day. And I've realized what's happening. I'm getting tired because I check the time of it every single day and the L's start at the same time every single day. I'm just getting tired. And so I told him that. And he's playing a different game right now. So he must have gotten 2 losses. Because I can see him on Discord right now.
Nice.
He's playing Mortal Kombat, and he was playing Heroes of the Storm, so he must have had 2 losses in a row.
Well, let's give your friend the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he got like 7 wins in a row, and they're just like, you know what?
Good.
It's not getting better than this. Like I'm going out on this high.
Let's do that.
I've been having that exact same experience with Battlegrounds lately.
Play it for you, and if by any chance Heroes League and Team League comes back, then we can start talking about what it means or whatever. But for me, it's like, I still have respect for everyone who moves up in rank, whether you do it with a friend or not. I still have a lot of respect for it, and I mean, it feels good. It feels good. So
rad.
I don't know.
Awesome.
We'll see.
Let's come back around on some of your questions, Kyle, because we're already almost an hour into the show.
Sure.
So let's take a quick break before we move on with our some of our planned discussions here with NotParadox, and thank our patrons who make guests possible. If you're unaware, folks, patreon.com/ITN, that is where you can go and support our podcast. That's where you can go and support Into the Nexus. You get perks, you get access to the Discord, you can sign up for Patron Bonanza games, you can get the ad-free podcast feed, which you can plug into your podcatcher, and you're going to keep getting the show like normal. All by going to patreon.com/ITN. But you also help us pay our guests, because when we have guests on the show, we pay them for their time, and that's because of your support. So thank you very much for that. And to some of our more recent patrons, Freza, Wishy, and Greg Heist, thank you very much for supporting the show. We very much appreciate it. And with the mention of that ad-free feed, let's thank our sponsors today, Bombas Socks. Kyle, you and I have done, we've talked about Bombas socks before. They're super comfortable. If you're unfamiliar, you can go to Bombas, that's bombas.com/Nexus to check them out. You're also going to get 20% off your first purchase. And if you're unfamiliar with the company, they donate socks. It's not only are they comfortable, they have things like arch support in the socks. I didn't even know until I found Bombas, I didn't know you could even put arch support in socks. But on top of all of that, socks are apparently the most requested item in homeless shelters. And for every pair of socks sold, Bombas donates a pair to someone in need. So you can feel good while you're also feeling comfortable because your socks now have arch support and they're super soft. I mean, it's a win-win scenario. So go check them.
We're moving out of the holidays and it's going to be spring soon, sooner than you think. You want to wear those sweet shoes and not show your socks. Well, you probably bought some cruddy bag somewhere that has like a single strip of like protect. Ooh, this will stick to your skin. That's going to wear out. No, you need like the full Velcro to your feet. And that's why I'm amazed by Bombas socks.
They also
and I'm wearing them right now.
They've got a lot of different styles. And I'm curious, do you think Greymane would go for over the calf or would he go like no show? Because either way, he goes full werewolf. He gets some extra joints in his feet. I think over the calf. I think Greymane would go for over the calf.
Wait, hang on though, because is it like American Werewolf, like Underworld kind of style where he rips his clothes every time? They're just magical clothes.
I've never really thought about the canon on his clothes. I want to say it's like Hulk, and they don't think about it too much.
Yeah, but in the Avengers, they show that he like gets a new shirt, and like that guy sweeping gives him pants and stuff. We haven't addressed this in World of Warcraft, and I think he's still got a family, right? He's got to look good. He's not just swinging single all the time now.
He's part of a family. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, poor Greymane.
Part of a family.
But he needs to look good still. I think he'd go for something stylish.
Okay, so like a fun print and like a no-show.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. Well, go check them out. Bombas.com/Nexus right now. Get yourself 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Nexus. We think that their support. And since you're here, NotParadox, we did want to just poke back into your tier list ever so briefly. Because we spent a decent time talking about it last week, but you weren't here. You weren't here to defend yourself against me shouting things like, "How dare you put Rexxar so low?"
Yeah. It's let me move it. Well, actually, I can see it right there. Okay. Yeah. It's so this tier list, I had three major criteria. Remember, I just did bronze to masters, and I realized in each rank there's kind of something that you needed to make sure that you can move up. And so I picked heroes that not only could fit the majority of those things that you need throughout every single rank. So my three criteria that I looked for when I was making this tier list was you had to have a way to get an experienced lead. Okay. The second thing was that I'm trying to remember what the second thing was. The third thing was that they had to be easy to play. Oh, the second thing was like with the intentions of carrying, I think. But essentially they needed to be able to do a lot of different things, have consistent value, and they needed to be relatively easy to play. Now, this was all keeping in mind that this is solo queue, Storm League. So this is not like Cho'Gall, for example. Like even if Gall was pretty easy to play and decent to move up in rank, you need someone else to have that coordination, or it's just not going to work. Or someone that like Zarya is going to be a little difficult because you're always going to need like someone else to make sure that you're getting extra value out of it. So I picked heroes particularly that would be easy to play. That you could play alone. You don't need a follow-up. You don't need a setup. You don't need anything like that. And that's where this tier list was created. So for people saying like, oh, well, I'm really surprised that you put Uther so low when he's being used in every single game in the competitive scene right now. I would say, well, what can Uther do on his own? And can you get that experience lead on your own? Because this is all about playing by yourself. So this has nothing to do with the competitive scene. This is purely to do with what I saw in Storm League and what I felt when I was moving from bronze to masters in 2019. I did like the Me 2019 tier list thing that got really popular. And And
that tool, that tool is missing Kira and Deathwing. I went ahead and added it into the show. But
yes.
if folks watch your video, you explain that they're missing.
Yes. So this is where I put it. Some points, yes, it's still subjective. I know some people find some of these heroes easier than I said that they were. Some people said, these actually have more or less of whatever. For example, Rexar, I put him lower primarily because he's more difficult to play. He's more difficult to get value out of, because even if you play Rexar as just, okay, the bear's just going to attack what I attack and we'll just go with that, he's not going to be better than someone like Imperius. But if you really get good at Rexar, then you can absolutely dominate solo lane, and your flanks can be insane. Like those boar flanks are insane. But without that, he's very difficult. That's why I moved some people down. Alarak, same thing. Someone was telling me they're like, Alarak's the best hero to move up in rank with. I've done it 6 times on 6 different Smurfs. And it's like, I get that. But that's a Grandmaster player moving down into Silver playing Alarak. You're naturally going to be making plays and punishing mistakes that other people won't even realize are mistakes. And I said, this is why these are the easier to play heroes to move up in rank. I've also coached 100 people in this last year, and the majority of them have moved up 2 full tiers. And it's with, I mean, that S tier right there, that list up at the top. And then I think like Arthas is on my list of like common heroes that I like to push people to while I'm coaching for a different reason. But that list up there, that S tier, are the heroes that I recommend over and over and over and over. Just because those are heroes that are easy to move up in rank with.
So to touch on something you didn't really talk about in your video, and also that we didn't really get into last week, to kind of change things up around this, you know, what if I'm looking at your tier list and I'm kind of using it as a guide, which again, don't use any tier list as carved in stone scripture, but you know, using it as a place to start thinking about it, you know, what should I be worrying about banning? If that's a conversation that you can have without getting too granular about individual ranks and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, just ban whatever's annoying in your rank. I mean, I banned. So that's the other thing about the S tier I do mention in the video. These are also heroes that are very hard to counter. They're people just don't really understand that. But I just ban whatever tilts my team. Like when I was in low rank, I banned KT, even though I'm personally not afraid of KT. I banned KT because my team would tilt if I didn't ban KT. I started getting up to high ranks, I banned Ana, even though I don't think Ana's really ban worthy anymore. I banned Garrosh, even though I have answers to Garrosh. I banned anything that would tilt my team, because you are pretty much at the mercy of your team. If your team decides to throw, that's what they're going to do. So do whatever you can to avoid your team from throwing. Do whatever you can to get an experience lead, and then you're likely just going to win the game. And that's pretty much it. So the heroes that I recommend are heroes that are hard to counter, heroes that can get that experience lead, and heroes that can do a lot of damage where they want it to be at the speed they want it to be. So yeah, it's interesting. And again, people can move things up or down. I know one guy, he's like, Garrosh needs to be S tier because like he's just and it's like he's a little difficult in my opinion, you know, like so I just move people around a little bit. But yeah, I mean, if there's any, I could go through and talk about every single one. I'll talk specifically about the S tier and maybe the D tier, but I'll keep it very brief. But if there's any of the heroes you point out in there, Ariel will likely be moved down when she's nerfed.
Yeah, I didn't want you to go hero by hero because folks can go watch your video for that.
Yeah, they can watch that.
Yeah. So if nothing else,
there's anything you guys are curious about, I know one person mentioned on Twitter, they're like, Chen's so low. For me, I even played him in low ranks, and what was happening was like I would dive in their backline and kill like 1 or 2 people. I would always trade positively, but I would have no way to get out, and my team would always be running like a mile away, and I was like, there's nothing I can do about that.
Kyle,
so I just moved him down.
You spent a decent amount of time talking about how ETC doesn't click for you. Do we want to get NotParadox to learn you good about ETC?
I mean, at this point, it feels like, you know, I'm kind of grinching up on my mountain looking at ETC Whoville, but I see the seduction when you're looking from the top, because look at these stuns, look at this solo lane ability, look at the variants and ults. I don't understand how he's easy to play. And is there a magical, not the half screen rule or the always engage backwards, which is also like, no, never engage backwards because the face melt. You need to face melt after you power slide because you need the damage. And there's so many conflicting ideas about ETC. What makes him top tier easy to play?
I think when I coach people, the majority of the problems I find on ETC is people are just pressing too many buttons. Like if you see something, stun something. Like that's pretty much it. Like don't overthink it. You don't need to flank with him. You just sit back, you take poke for your team a little bit. You still try to not take too much damage. You heal back up that poke. And then when someone gets out of position, when you see like their tank's taking too much damage, they walk away, but their assassin's still trying to attack you, slide in, boop them into your team. And I always wait on the boop.
12-second cooldown. Like you don't need, it's not a heroic. You don't need to just sit on it.
Yeah. I mean, but my issue is like his mana and stuff. Like you use too many abilities, and his abilities are so like if you slide in too early, you die. So it's, for me, it's less about like the cooldowns of him. It's more of like, or you press your W too early, you knock him away from something. So I slide in. I usually wait after I slide to see if like people are going to throw any abilities first. And if they don't, then I'll knock them into my team closer. And if they do, then I wait till all those abilities hit and then I knock them into my team. You'll still get the crit damage most of the time. And if not, your crit damage isn't usually worth as much as like your team's follow-up. So that's just what it is. Like his abilities are not difficult. And once you kind of start realizing like what you're actually supposed to be doing and not just going in on every opportunity, but you're just waiting for, because especially when you're in like gold and plat, it like what happens a lot of times is people are finally starting to get that they should be attacking the tank more. And I guess it's more like plat and diamond. People start attacking the tank more, but you can almost bait them a little bit because like they'll attack you and you're kind of moving away. And then suddenly they're so far in front of their tank, you slide and then you bump them into your team and they're dead. And those are the mistakes you're trying to look for with ETC is heal through the damage you're taking and see if you can like pull people towards you, slide through, take them. But overall, he's just easier to play. After level 7, he has wave clear, so you can at least do that. And he has very easy engages on low cooldowns, very strong engages on large cooldowns. He just can do a little bit of everything, and I don't know. I mean, I see some of the ones that you play, though. You like to do some damage. Like, I'll see you play Diablo. I'll see you play Arthas. I'll watch your stream, and like, you do damage to people. So I could see where ETC doesn't really click with you because he only has a little bit of damage and burst, and it's a very small burst. It's enough to where it feels good, but that's it. So outside of that, you can't just keep hitting people with ETC because he has very little armor and he has very little health compared to some of the other tanks. So it's harder to just sit there and hit people.
No, that's a fair assumption. I mean, really, the madness comes from being solo lane thrall and getting beat by an ETC, and I'm sitting here like, what kind of world is this? I've got the hammer, you've got a guitar, and you're winning. This isn't fair. Get out of my lane, sir. Go main tank the 4-man, and he's doing it. And I think something that really clicked for me this week is I was watching your Blaze video, because after your ranking of Blaze and A, and that we can all move off a bunker, esports, we're not going to worry about it. You can combust now. I'm really into Blaze, but watching you was like watching a like the Karate Kid or like a TV show about a monk. Like you just wanted, every time I saw you go anywhere, I'm like, come on, get him. And you're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait. Yeah. I'm not going to engage here. And I'm like, come on, get him. And you rocked it and you controlled well. And when you did stun, it was very valuable. So
I play very safe on tanks. That's one of my things. And it could be that I switched from a support main to a tank main for a while. And I still had that mindset of where I was watching more of my team than watching the enemy team. But all it takes is for you to get in and get punished a couple too many times. And you're like, all right, I'm waiting back. And then you wait for someone to make a mistake. And looking for mistakes, it sounds way easier said than done, for sure. Because I'll say like, oh, he did a mistake. And then people are like, how is that a mistake? And it's just you have to kind of start really watching it and watching like replays to see where people are actually like messing up to really realize that, or just play a lot of that hero.
Yeah, that's probably,
you play a lot of one hero, you'll start really noticing the mistakes, because you'll go, oh, I can do 60% of like Avala's health, so I need to wait until we're in a position where that's going to be relevant, you know?
Yeah, and that's something like, I mean, I think Kyle knows what a mistake is, but if you're newer to this concept, it's one of those things you're just gonna also, I think, get a gut sense for as you start logging games with the character and just start trying things. Like, how many power slides until you actually secure a kill? Well, what was different that time that you power slid and someone died as a result of it? Getting back on Sylvanas, there's that, I just get this sensation in my gut when another auto attacker I'm facing off against stutter steps one too many times, and I know that if I send my wave and jump to it, I'm gonna have enough time on this target to murder them. Like, I know that exact one extra step too many when it's okay, I've got them.
Yeah, I mean, that's operant conditioning. That's all it is. You literally get a feeling, and the more you play these heroes, and that's why a lot of times with people I say to like one trick a hero, because you're gonna get those feelings. Like, not only are you gonna learn like, oh, it takes me 17 seconds to do this camp, which means that when this says 30 seconds, I have time to do this camp and then go to the objective. You get that, you get actual knowledge, but you also get that conditioning where you get those feelings where you know when something's right. That's where Blaze for me is like, he has the wave clear, he has the cam clear, and his full combo isn't too difficult with a little bit of practice. Then all the rest that you have to learn is just timing and all that. But yeah, I like Blaze. I mean, combustion's another thing. Like, you'll have people disagree with me all the time on this, and that's okay. I was talking to McIntyre the other day, and he's like, I will never take combustion. And I was like, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. And he was a pro player. He knows what's going on. And it's like, but for me, when I was moving up in rank, he was one of my favorites, because you just stun half their team, do half their health. And even if your team doesn't show up, their team is scared and you just won that objective. Like, that's pretty much what it is. Like, they're like, whoa, one person just did all of that and their team hasn't even fired an ability yet. My team doesn't even know what's going on yet, but their team's like, whoa, let's back off. And it just works. So.
All right. Now, Kyle, you and I think we're both in agreement last week that we were a little head scratching on Malthael. Is that just an ease of play for Malthael being so high on your list?
So Malthael, one of the big things I prioritized in this list was wave clear and camp clear. And Malthael has the easiest wave clear and camp clear. You right click, you hold Q. That's it. And you wipe waves. You end most camps with more health than when you started. And waves are very, very simple. When you get into team fights, you right click and you hold Q. The only thing that you can get much better at Malthael with is knowing when to go in and when to get out. That's it. That is literally it on Malthael. You can bait your ult if you're going last strides, or you can like act like you're going to do it so that someone might use a protection on them and then you do it. There's like little tricks like that, but at the end of the day, his mechanics are super simple. It really just comes down to knowing when to get in, when to get out, and he's one of the few heroes that can do everything, especially in low ranks, because people are bad at focusing targets and they're bad at burst. And they pick no CC. He really, really is good. It's just that people overcommit with him a lot. And it's that feeling. You need to get that feeling where, oh, I've got that feeling they don't have enough damage to kill me, so I should be able to out heal everything. That's the feeling you need to get on Malthael. Or if you go, I'm getting a feeling I'm about to die, pop your Fear of the Reaper and get out. And that's something is like on a Pale Horse is it's a cool talent, but I personally find it's a little overrated when Fear the Reaper is the easiest way that you can get out of any fight. So that's just something for Malthael is like, he's very, very easy mechanically, and he does everything that you need to get that experience lead. He just takes a little bit of practice in knowing when to get in and when to get out. It's about it for me on him.
Corny in the chat room is curious because they say they don't think any melee assassins are super easy because they're too easy to feed.
I could agree with that, just because you get it. I mean, a lot of people, almost all melee assassins is timing, but most of them require a lot of mechanics too. Like, I mean, Alarak, Maiev, Zeratul. You need to have all those mechanics down. Kira, all of that requires a lot of skill. Malthael is a bruiser. I mean, even though he's debated as an assassin, a melee assassin, you just right click, hold Q. But I do agree. I think most I do think most melee assassins are a lot more difficult to get value out of than other roles.
What about Raynor here in Tier S? Do we need to do Banshee to get value?
I go Hyperion because I don't play him enough. I don't play him enough to practice it, and if you don't practice it, it's not worth it, in my opinion. I liked Raynor
like
just because of how simple. Yeah, same thing with Misha. If you're not gonna, I actually practice Rexar though, so it's a little bit more natural for me because you get to practice that from level 1 on. So even if you're a little rusty, you've like 4 levels before it's relevant. With Raynor, level 10, you should be doing something major, and you're still trying to remember how to use this thing, I just don't recommend. I go Hyperion, and I recommend people go Hyperion unless you play him a lot. Raynor's damage is just surprisingly high for how simple it is. If you just right click on someone, press W, you're doing like 400 DPS at level 10. And at level 10, most tanks have about 4,000 health. That's 10 seconds on your own. But for the most part, you're going to be just picking down anyone that's there. It's very easy damage. Someone starts charging towards you, knock them away. And Hyperion during team fights, so you're melting down their tanks slowly, but you're also scaring their whole team. He's just pretty easy. His camp clear is relatively quick. His wave clear is relatively quick. He's just, I don't know. Whenever I coach people and I give them Raynor, he's one of the few that I can give Raynor to a bronze person and say, play nothing but Raynor. And I can tell them, like this one guy, I coached him. We only had an hour because he's like, oh, well, I've got work and everything. We had an hour. I watched one replay and I told him to play nothing but Raynor for the next 2 weeks. He was bronze 5. He's gold 1. And I told him like nothing but play Raynor endlessly. And he's gold 1. He's just one of the easiest heroes to like slowly improve on. And he has such a high skill ceiling and for which seems very like a very simple hero, but he's got such a high skill ceiling that there's always room to improve.
I mean, that was a tip we gave out for like, I felt like an entire year, Kyle. Like 3 years ago, it was play Raynor. Like so many questions we got about improving.
To be honest, I stole that from you guys. This was actually before his rework too. I said that. Like before his rework, I was saying that. Like because
everything's
of you guys.
So readable.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you die because you took 2 steps too close. It's not like a Vala or anything else in the game where you're sitting around being like, man, like if I vaulted like at 9 o'clock rather than 11 o'clock,
right?
Or I should have vaulted in like 3 seconds ago. And you're not left with these big conversations in your head. You're just like, oh, like I was out of position and I got punished for it. And I would love to I'd love to see what anomaly could help with that. We were talking last week about like Sky Temple, in that what if every building you just had a core shield from the beginning and it was just huge? It took up the whole screen, but each team knew that every building was a core shield mechanically for the objective. There's a comment at the very top of your Blaze video that says, oh, your Jaina hit her Ring of Frost. Well, I'm never going to get a Jaina who can hit Ring of Frost on my team.
Mm-hmm.
But your tanking made Jaina comfortable enough to cast Ring of Frost in a general direction of the enemy team with a 2-level lead that she then followed up because she was comfortable. Like, is there a world where we can like quantify comfort into a mechanic?
I pitched the idea a year and a half ago, and this is actually something I took from World of Warcraft back in Mists of Pandaria, where there should be a challenge system for each role, and there's gonna be levels that you can get it. For example, just getting into like Storm League or whatever, you should at least get a bronze in that, where you need to complete that challenge and then move forward. Well, for me, tanking is very nuanced, and no one really realizes what you're supposed to do on tanking other than eat damage and try to CC someone. There's so many other things that you could be doing that I would love for all of those things to be taught in a challenge mode, where if you don't do it correctly, then your team will never walk up. Or if you do it incorrectly, maybe your whole team dies and then it blames it on you and it says you baited your team. Because I do that a lot in coaching, where someone's like, do you see, like, my team's dying all the time? I'm like, you went back in on that. Like, that was not a fight you should be going back in on. I said, you're the one that baited your team. And they're like, well, and it's like that sometimes it is on you. And the nuanced roles are really hard to know that I figured that there should be a instead of us trying to make anomalies to teach all this, because I have no idea to answer your question. I have no idea what anomaly could teach like positioning correctly without it just being more punishing and more abused. That's why I think the challenge modes would be perfect, because it's set 100% on you. If you keep failing a challenge mode, you keep learning that it's you that needs to be improving on these things, not your team's positioning, because that's a big thing about tanks like Blaze is you only have one in, you only have one out, and they both share the same cooldown. And so if you go in too early, your team's dead. And same thing, like if you don't cover for your team, Blaze's oil is my peeling tool, it's my setup tool. And if the oil doesn't work, then I stay near my team. And if the oil does work, then I go in and we set up, like we do something. And having a challenge mode, you don't need to make a different one for each tank, but try to make one that's complicated or complex enough that it's gonna be difficult for every tank to do, and maybe give like an icon or something where if someone locks in a hero and they have a gold star next to that hero, they completed the challenge mode on that hero. So it's like that would be really, really cool to teach all of these random nuanced mechanics for every major role. And then you'll learn, like Melee Assassin, if that was the thing, knowing when people could go in and come out without dying would be really, really big, because then that would help assassins as well. It's like, oh, you just went in too early. You need to wait until they use abilities on your tank, then you go in. You have time to use your abilities, and then when theirs are coming back off cooldown, you might need to back out, wait for them to use more abilities on your tank, and then go back in again. Like one of my Ragnaros videos, I'm like going in, smack, walk away, go in, smack, walk away. And like I didn't just sit and auto attack in there. I only went in when my Q was up, and then I walked away. And it's like that's something that's so hard to teach, like without just literally having people have to go through something like that.
Maybe I know that like programming is a time-intensive process, and anything outside the game, like these challenges, is quite beyond the team at the moment.
Yeah.
What if we had, maybe in quick match, maybe in certain ranks, a little guitar by ETC's name for all to see if he had the cooldown for Power Slide, and a little foot by Muradin, a little boost by Blaze, and all of our tanks just had like a warning for all that they had that cooldown available.
I mean, would that be, I guess my only thought about that is, would that be used more for bullying than it would be used for like holding an ability to follow up? Because if I saw that, I think that would be great, because I'd be like, okay, my ETC is ready to slide. I'm playing Tyrande. I'm going to follow up, right? But I'm worried that if someone dies and they say ETC with slide up, they're going to be just flaming them the whole time. And it's like, for me, I'm going, but like, there's a lot of people that die so far from me. I'm like, there's no way I would have saved you. I don't know if that really teaches as much, because I think the people that don't know about following up and don't know about positioning are going to use that more as like a blaming tool rather than a learning tool. But I do like that thought, and I would like to move like forward with something like that, though. I just can't, again, when it comes to stuff like this, it's like I tend to always go with more of like the big picture, when again that's something that it can't be done for the most part. So I always need to like think back, because I like that I like that direction. Like can we keep going in that direction and think of another way that would be pretty good? But I like that. I'll have to think about that.
Your brain went to a similar place that mine did, which is, I can think of some challenges with that, but it's a good way to look at it. I'm going to change servers real fast on Discord because everyone's getting a little crunchy. So I'm just going to refresh it real quick, and it may blow the show up. Hopefully it won't. Are we back?
Welcome to Central.
Wonderful.
It looks like we're back.
Kyle, if you want to toss up one more question, I also need a wire came unplugged behind my computer that I need to deal with right now.
Sure. No, I got one ready to go. Another anomaly idea, perhaps to help me with a Tiltai experience watching your video on this tier list. You revealed something so simple and so mind fracturing about mages, and why Jaina, Kael'thas are at top, why Gul'dan is in the B, and we get into Mephisto and others later on. Li Ming. Lane clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a world where maybe we don't worry about the draft so much. Maybe we're not going to have Johanna picks over Diablo because we went Mephisto to make up for lane clear. And we just say anomaly, all mages have lane clear, every single one of them.
That's an idea. I thought you were going in a different direction with that, but I like that idea. I mean, you could just make it to where there's like a zappy aura around mages where they just walk into the lane and the minions just die if they reach it, or take like steady damage that most mages would be able to do. Same with wave clear, I mean, or cam clear, because the big thing that I had with Mephisto is like, I like Mephisto's damage. I think that he has a cool build. I think he has 2 cool builds. But every time I'm looking at a camp, I'm like, oh, this is going to take me an hour, you know? And so then I just always end up going back to like Jaina and Kael'thas and people who can just do camps faster, Sylvanas, stuff like that. It's just tough. But yeah, I think that would be a cool anomaly, is giving a role that has to do with something, giving that role to them as you are now the person that needs to do that. So an anomaly that's like, hey, mages are normally there for wave clear. Let's make that just your thing where the teams rely on you for getting that. I think that'd be a cool anomaly, or something that like a mage could pick up, where like, hey, this role wants to pick this up because of whatever. Like, make it connected to your actual range. So you get a zap aura that's equal to your range or something that only hits minions. I think that's cool. I think it's a cool anomaly idea.
It's just the reliance of the team on those rules to lane clear, I feel like, is what's keeping Li Ming's down. You know, let's give him the Calamity lane clear again. What can we do about Mephistos? They've made some interesting choices. I see a lot of Mephistos doing like lightning at 1, taking a camp, which I'm like, oh, huzzah! Like, thank you, Mr. Mephisto. You're not just farming skulls the whole early game.
Mm-hmm.
And if we reinforce that, can we move these guys up? Do we remove some draft dependency?
Yeah. Can I so Wonderbread in chat just mentioned something that I've actually recommended before, is if we just had a trait system sometimes that we at least knew who had what. And then maybe on the map, when you're drafting into the map, just put like things that are like on the plant map, for example, that says like, we incur blank trait, you know, like camps on this map, because on the plant map there's a lot of camps and they respawn a lot. Like a trait system on the heroes and a trait system on the maps could solve that without needing to make an anomaly. But I do like that idea of, if we're gonna have anomalies, let's have anomalies, you know, let's do something. And if this anomaly, the only problem I see that it solves is the transparency, let's find every weird nuanced thing in the game and start making anomalies to teach these things. I'm okay with all of that. I like that. And with Li Ming, I mean, Li Ming's balanced. A lot of these heroes that are lower in my list are not bad heroes. They're just balanced because of that. So because they don't cover all the macro means that they tend to be a little bit stronger in other stuff. Li Ming in team fights is still very strong. She just doesn't cover all the things that people forget about in low rank. And that's my big issue with like putting her higher up on the list, is she just doesn't cover a lot of the stuff that you need to cover, because especially in low ranks, no one thinks about it. So they just don't even draft for it. So you have to draft for it. Now you have to cover all of it. And same thing with CC. Like, nobody likes to draft CC in low ranks. Like, I've had so many games where I had one game, actually, I was playing ETC and I didn't even realize it. I got to level 10 and I was like, I'm probably going to go Mosh. And I looked at their team and I went, they don't have a single Mosh interrupt on their entire team. And I was like, this is crazy. And it happened more often than I thought, especially in low ranks. But yeah, people just don't like drafting CC in low ranks or wave clear or camp clear.
It's a great thing to start noticing in your games. So
there's a D rank hero here, and we already talked about Abathur, who I feel like does deserve to be in there regardless of skill to play.
Mm-hmm.
Genji at the moment just doesn't have the oomph.
Yep.
And he is repeatedly a high rank pick, even though that burden on your team is so extreme. Like, how would you buff Genji, it's horrifying to think about because I don't want to return to that world.
Yeah, so I have ideas on Genji. Actually, this is a hero I've talked about a lot. I've thought about a lot because I like his playstyle in this game. I like his playstyle in Overwatch. But yeah, he does very little damage now. And even with that high mobility, he had to be balanced because he had such high mobility that he was just really annoying and he could just do so much. Now he can't really do anything. Even in the highest levels of Master, he's the third lowest win rate hero in the game, and his popularity is very low. He is a very, very awkward hero. If you give him too much mobility, he's going to be back to where he was. He's going to be just way too mobile and way too annoying. I think what they should do is they should nerf his mobility and buff his actual like damage. So his auto attack, his Q should be buffed a ton. He should get new talents to increase those, encourage those. And then they should make his E a 30-second cooldown. So if you are going to take the risk to go for it, you can still get that reset and you can still get it back out. But it's going to be a big risk. And you could bait your team, like you could bait a Genji in too, because it's going to be such a long cooldown that if someone on your team's about to die, give him a quick shield. Genji dashes in, doesn't get the kill, and now he's stuck there for 30 seconds, right? I feel like 30 seconds is a good number because it's an instant out whenever he needs to get out. And all the other instant outs in this game, Tassadar E, Tracer Recall, are 30-second cooldowns. Let's make his a 30-second cooldown, make it high risk, high reward, because if you're buffing his Q damage and his auto attack damage, that's going to buff his ability to charge into the back and then hit with the triple Q and just drop someone in the back line. But now it's going to be very high risk. And I think that's the thing that really he needs is he needs this sustained damage in the front line if you want to go for it. And then the better Genji players can understand the risk and the reward of going further. This would help the low ranks because auto attacking is easy. Q is pretty straightforward. This would help the high ranks because of that high risk, high reward, but it wouldn't increase the annoying aspect of Genji of having way too mobile hero being out there. So I think they should nerf his mobility, make high cooldown on his E, make his trait a long cooldown as well, and then give him more damage on his auto attack, his Q, and then maybe more talents to make those a little bit stronger.
Could we give him the 3-strike bacon? That'd be kind of nice for his camping and, you know, a little bit of siege.
A 3-strike baked in, we could. I mean, it already does a lot of burst even before you take that talent, but I wouldn't mind it. I think that would be interesting. That would help with camps and siege, yeah. His wave clear is already weak, but giving him just camp clear would be kind of cool. And we could even give him a talent for cam clear if you really need to. Make it on a difficult tier to take, something where like you need this talent, like the cooldown reduction on his E or on his deflect is always popular. Put a talent on there that's like you get cam clear. Like there's stuff you could do with him that won't make him annoying again, that could still make him strong. Kind of like how they fixed Deckard. They're like, let's put more stuff on yourself and less stuff on your team, because with a team he's dominant, but we need to nerf all of that. And now he sucks. So it's like, let's try to buff him up. So I've been buffing up more selfish things on Deckard and nerfing more like team oriented things. And I think they can do the same thing with Genji. Like the mobility was the problem. Nerf the mobility, buff up everything else.
Rad. Well, shall we move into some questions from our listeners, Kyle?
Let's do that.
Darkness stopped calling. Darkness just texted me.
It's not the moment, it's a hero brawler!
You can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com, or if you're a patron, drop us a question in the patron Discord. Gare is going to start us off. That's what all of my cousins call me. The only people on this earth that have a one-syllable nickname for me. Gare writes in and says, Silver Greymane, how can I be most effective in the Braxis 4-man? Which heroes are strong at winning the 4-man? What is your cue to grab mercs other than an enemy death?
So what I try to look for is when stalemates are created, which means that like the enemy's got control over the point and there's nothing you can do to get it back because whatever you've been trying isn't working. I know it's Einstein's definition of insanity, right? Like you keep doing it but expecting different results. Whenever you're having a fight that's just going like that, that's a great time to get cams on Greymane. And the fountains are a little far from the cams, so getting cams early on might be a little tricky if you're not too great at that, but I do still recommend getting healed up, grabbing a fountain, and just going for a camp. practice it out in a custom game to see what levels you can get different camps at on Greymane. Do you need to get fountains? Do you not? Because it is one of those where both of the camps you can pick up by yourself, and both of them are very, very strong. As far as in the 4-man, the best thing I would say is go the same just ranged auto attack build that I recommend. Try to keep your W going as long as possible on the enemy tank. But I mean, stay positioning behind your tank if you can. Throw Qs whenever you can. I mean, it's just consistent damage is the best way to really dominate in the 4-man. But yeah, if you start really stomping them, I usually recommend just sieging instead of, so you can still stay near the lane. I usually just recommend sieging rather than going for a camp. But if you start hitting a point where it starts feeling a little awkward, or if they all start disappearing, like go check their camp really quick, or just grab your camp to counter their camp. Because especially in low rank silver, if you know the enemies are doing their camp, you will never convince your team to go kill them at their camp. It's going to take too much coordination. Half the people will listen, half won't. Grab your camp to counter their camp. That's about it. But otherwise, look for stalemates whenever you're doing camps. Wherever like one team decides that they can't get it, or it's just going back and forth, that's when you want to go for it. But yeah, I think that's my biggest thing for Greymane. Sustain damage, stalemates, do camps.
Anything to add to that, Kyle? I know you like your Greymane.
I kind of like my Greymane in the solo sometimes.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, they're wild boys, and they can eke it out. I mean, a lot of Greymanes are Greymanes because the amount of effort you have to know to kind of know both kits.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like them in the solo. I have a really hard time with solos that don't have a lot of like self-healing. Just because it's like if you get poked a little bit, it feels really bad because you just have to back. Like if your fountain's already used, you just have to back. So it gets a little tricky for me sometimes to pick him in the solo, but I've seen him in the solo and he can be really dominant for sure.
Well, Dax is up next and says, NotParadox recently did the Bronze the GM challenge, and he came out with a solo queue tier list for heroes that can help gain value and carry Storm League games. What mechanics or skill sets does he think each rank should focus on or need to know to reach that level up moment to move into the next league? Example, what does gold need to focus on to get into plat?
So, I mean, this is a pretty big question. There is similarities in every rank all the way up because there is people moving up. There are a few things that I noticed, though, is bronze and silver in general are very, very quick to tilt. They're very, very quick to like start typing. Their morale gets low very, very quickly. So where a lot of people would say like, oh, like all I get is levers and feeders, like I could feel that because if you get behind in bronze or silver, people do like immediately start freaking out. So my biggest tip in bronze and silver is learn how to get experience leads early. In fact, the most common comment I had on my silver videos was, well, Paradox, try this when you don't have a 3-level lead. But I got a 3-level lead every game because it is possible. And it's just from getting camps at the right times, making sure that you're always soaking lanes, double soaking lanes, all of those things that I've mentioned. And all of the heroes that are in that S tier can do all of these things. Except for Ariel, but that's just because she's really strong right now. But you can kind of do everything, and that's bronze and silver. You have to do those. Gold and plat, I find, is just consistency. I feel that people in gold and plat are better. And they don't freak out as often, but they're very inconsistent. You don't need to make major plays. You just need to do well, don't die very often, and still do everything that you're supposed to be doing, but do it consistently. One of the things that I did every single game was I made sure that I was getting a camp at 1 minute. I made sure that I was double soaking. I made sure that I was doing all of those. And I found that a lot of the people that I coached, like if they played a lot of games during the day, the last 4 or 5 games of the day, they stopped getting their early camps. They stopped getting all that. They just started following people around. If you find yourself starting to like zone out and not doing everything that you need, go play a different game mode for a little bit. You need to have that consistency. And that was like gold and plat was just like, they were, for the most part, they were mechanically pretty good players. They just weren't doing the things that they needed to do. Almost every single game, I would get a camp at 1 minute, the enemies wouldn't. I would get a camp at 2:30 right before the objective spawned, the enemies wouldn't. And those things add up really fast. By the end of the first objective, I almost always had a 2 to 3 level lead. Because it was just, that's how it happened.
Well, and it goes back to that, like you were talking about your friend who you were like, hey, if you lose 2 games, stop playing. Is that kind of thing? Like a lot of us probably start
that's like
getting
the perfect rank for that. Like gold and plat, that's what you need to be doing. I call this a lot of times introspective intelligence, right? Which is your ability to understand your own state, right? Are you sober? Are you awake? Are you tilted? Most of us have really, myself included, have really, really bad introspective intelligence, right? You need to be able to really realize what is going on in your own mind, or you are going to start going down. I find this in Overwatch a lot. It's a game I'm not great at, so it's a great game for me to see what other people are seeing in Heroes of the Storm, because I'm just the best at Heroes. No, I'm just kidding. But it just gave me an idea of like, I'm trying to improve slowly at this game, just to see that I can still improve. And my games almost every day go 4 wins, 4 losses, 4 wins, 4 losses. And I find it's the same time every day. I'm just getting tired. That's all it is. And so we need to be able to look inward sometimes and go, what is happening when I have these loss streaks? Because when I'm playing, I feel like I'm getting win after win after win. Then suddenly I'm getting loss after loss after loss. Learn that. That's gold and plat. Diamond that's when you need to start kind of making, people are still gonna be making mistakes, and there's still going to be inconsistency issue. All the other issues, there's going to be less of them. This is the time when you need to start actually kind of learning to make a couple plays. This is when you can open up your roster a little bit and start focusing a little bit more on draft. Is Diamond to Masters. That's when you can start kind of inching out into a wider range of things. If you win in draft, there's a good chance you win, because for the most part in Diamond, mechanics are pretty good. People are not as easy to tilt. They still get tilted, but they're more willing to lose a fight and go, it's all right. And that's when it starts getting a little more about draft and all that. When you start getting up to Masters right now, it's all chaos. But if you can make plays, if you know, like what Garrett was saying, that feeling, right? If you're getting really good at that feeling, that's how you go up to Grandmaster, is where you just take someone out because you get that feeling and they don't, because you're more comfortable in that hero than they are. That's when you start getting up to Grandmaster. But for the most part, I would say 90% of it is consistency and getting those experience leads, and you'll be moving up in rank throughout all of those ranks. That's what I found anyways when I did the bronze to Masters. But I know some other people found other things. I watched as Kala did it a while back. I watched as Apex did it a while back. And Apex did macro all the way up. He played Rhaegar all the way up. And so some things work for people all the way up, but that's just what I found anyways.
Rad. Well, the final question for today comes to us from the Joyful One, who dropped this in our Patron Discord and says, StarCraft announced WCS is being replaced by IEM series. Reforged is also getting an Intel series. Is there any hope for HOTS to get some of this love? Sure hope so.
I have no information on this whatsoever. I think that these were replacing like things that were already existing or things that were already going. I think if Intel did that a year ago, they would have taken over HGC. But doing it today is less hopeful. But I don't know. I no idea. I would say cool. Like, I would love to get back into a competitive scene like that, and I'd love to like start analyzing competitive scene again. So I would say thumbs up if they do.
It's interesting, and it's a big surprise they picked up the Warcraft 3 Reforged as well. The StarCraft line from J. and Brack is basically like the history, the story. It's too big. We can't stop StarCraft. But Blizzard may not be the best at supporting it at this point. We're going to get rid of BlizzCon for StarCraft as the finals. And honestly, Blizzard is a video game company, and they're spending a lot of their time making calls about who's going to advertise in front of a StarCraft match. Like, it's better in the hands of a company that has been doing this for a very long time, when they already had this sort of outsourcing going on. The fascinating thing is that Reforged is being added to this at the same time. And there's a journey here, and there may be a world, I think, where people go, yo, yeah, Reforged, this is great. I love these heroes. Man, controlling an army is real butts, though, man. I wish there was a game where I didn't have to control the whole army. Maybe just the hero, you know what I'm saying? Is there something like that in the Blizzard roster?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get moved to frustration with this, either over what you perceive as Blizzard's decisions or just timing. Like, as you said, NotParadox, maybe if who the hell knows? Like, it's kind of an unhelpful place to put your brain, right? What if Intel, or what if HTC had lived one more year and Intel was there waiting, or what if Intel was there last year? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, because doesn't matter. It's not the timeline. That's not the reality that we find ourselves in. But it is the kind of thing that it like makes me want to talk about it. It's a fun place to put my brain, as long as I keep it in a fun and positive place. I sure as hell hope so.
I think it would be really cool. I mean, as someone who's ran a bunch of tournaments, I just want to say, like, really quickly, that it's really hard to get return on investment unless you're with that company or you have something else in mind. Like, I've ran, in the last 4 or 5 months, it might be longer than that, I ran like 5 or 6 prize tournaments, and all that money pretty much just goes. I bring in very little, and it's because I don't have anything to sell. Like, what happens is, a lot of times is, I'll run a tournament, and like I ran the bronze and silver tournament, and someone got stomped by Sonya, and they messaged me and they're like, man, I'm picking up Sonya now. Like, what guide do you recommend? And I was like, man, I should get affiliate credit for that, right? Like, I ran a tournament and you bought a hero because of my tournament. I was like, I should make 10% off of that sale. And it's just something silly that it's like, I am only bringing more advertisement to a game, and it's okay. I love the game. I'm always good to support the game, but I do think that's kind of an interesting thing where it's not worth it for us to run prize tournaments. But if Intel's doing it and they find that it's worth it for that advertisement, then that's great. And I think this would be great. I mean, when HEC was around, it was getting good viewership, good enough to be worth, I think, the sponsorship. And so I wish I knew a contact at whoever set this up to just be like, hey, I'm just going to show you the viewership that HGC got, and I'm going to let you figure that out. You know, like,
yeah, that's
like,
the
just
thing,
give us an idea. But
yeah, it feels like the feeling is that there has to be a tournament of some size that is sustainable for the audience. Right. Yeah. With the correct amount of effort put in and whatnot. Obviously, HGC wasn't the answer. We don't need a studio. We don't need LAN events, outside of, unless we got tied up in with an already existing LAN event. Right. I mean, exactly. Yeah. It's a weird thing. I haven't really read up that closely on this news for StarCraft. But it's a little weird. Like, oh man. I'm really mad I didn't get to see the WCS finals at BlizzCon last year now. Like, I'm super miffed. Yeah. It's really like my personal reaction to it. But at the end of the day, like, StarCraft is now the esport I watch the most. I like it. It's now, and guys, I got to tell you, it's really nice to watch an esport that I don't do a show on. Like, it is so relaxing and it is so much fun. Like, to just enjoy. I do the same with Overwatch. I make no content on Overwatch. I don't have any plans to make content on Overwatch, and watching the pro scene is pretty relaxing to just go, I don't need to worry about any of this, and I can just watch it. So it is something else, but it's nice. And and for me, like, I'm like, whatever, GSL will still be there, and that's the one I watch the most and I care the most about. I'm actually not that big of a fan of WCS North America, so, like, to me, it doesn't make it, it's not a huge deal, but it keeps going. And so I kind of look at this as like, this is an interesting evolution. And of course my brain goes to Heroes, because this to me looks like a sustainable step. And I also find it a little funny, and I would like to throw shade in that. Yeah, this is what we were doing before Blizzard over invested in the esports in a way that wasn't sustainable and then kind of dumped on some of our dreams. Yup. And maybe they should have kept it here. Maybe they shouldn't have bought MLG and then essentially kind of ruined it by absorbing it and then not doing enough with it. So, I mean, that's the salt I want to throw. But whatever the case is, cool. Let me throw that salt. Let other people on Reddit throw that salt and make the right decision, because I think that's what this is. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. There's a lot of stuff in the competitive scene that like, even if we could just go back to 2015 where we didn't have HGC, but we still had a pro scene, and they would sponsor a lot of the events. So they would like pay for the locations, they would pay for the casters, while I believe it was Heroes Hype that paid for the prize pool and like just stuff like that. Like it, and they also volunteered to like do a lot of the other stuff. It still got, a lot of it got sponsored too. Like I remember Corsair was there, Logitech was there, and a couple other like companies that sponsored different things. So like if we could just get back to kind of like that would be cool. Or do what a lot of other games are doing and do sales that you can only buy certain skins with cash and not gems, and then that just goes to a prize pool. I mean, that created one of the largest prize pools in Dota, which then reinvigorated their pro scene. Like, I don't know if we have the capability of doing something like that, but that alone could be very good for a pro scene. There's a lot of things that could be done. I think right now we're just kind of sitting back, letting the balance hit the game, letting some of these new heroes settle a bit. And I hope that they're in the back of their mind talking about it a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, the Heroes doesn't even have an esports division anymore, too, at the end of the day. So whose job is it to even talk about that? We don't know. It's been, I mean, we're seeing growing pains is what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's an interesting thing. I'm just glad that like they weren't just, it wasn't another like, sorry, StarCraft is over. I would have been like, I'm sorry, what? Also, someone would have picked it up anyway. I think.
Yeah, StarCraft. I mean, yeah, it's people still watch it. I mean, the last one got a ton of views, and it's like, even though the game itself, like they said that the co-op mode is getting more higher player base than the multiplayer mode, but the amount of people that watch it, you can never scoff that. You know, there's so many people watch that finals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to turn this into like the unofficial new StarCast episode, but like a lot of us that grew up with StarCraft, we're older now. We're not as good as we used to be, or you're me and you were never that good to begin with, but you love the game and you think the competitive side of it is like the pinnacle of what can be achieved within a competitive video game. At least that's what I think. Yeah. I don't think there's a harder game to be better at. So
I agree that it is wild.
Because of that, I want to watch it. And then when I want to play it, I want to have fun. And that's not in 1v1 because I'm just going to get my butt handed to me. So I go and play co-op. But
yeah, kind of the same for me. I play co-op. I was never that great at StarCraft. I did like a little bit of Zealot Rush before it got too popular. And then I just stopped once people realized how to counter it. And I was like, all right.
I got pretty good at Roachling Hydra. I got pretty damn good at that. And then I just fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Heart of the Swarm happened. Anyways, well, thank you for your questions, everybody. Keep them coming. itncast@gmail.com. If you're a patron, drop them there in the patron channel. Skip the inbox entirely. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Speaking of our patrons, if you want to become one, you can head on over to patreon.com/ITN. We very much appreciate the support. Also, huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, Chris K., and Robert M. You can catch us live Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time over at twitch.tv/AMoveTV, and you can follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast. But around the table before we go, NotParadox as our returning guest for today. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, YouTube is really the main place right now. I've been taking a bit of a break from streaming, but I mean, if you still want to follow it, I am going to be starting up again whenever I get everything else I need to do figured out. But yeah, YouTube. So just go to youtube.com/NotParadox. You'll find me. I've got all sorts of videos, guides for individual characters. I've got everything. And then really anything else you want to find. I was too dumb to make it all the same thing everywhere. So if you just Google NotParadox, you'll find my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, all of that. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Dude, we love having you on. Thanks for returning. And hope everyone enjoyed the show. Kyle, what about you, man? Where can everyone find what you're doing?
Well, you can find the unapologetic Heart of Chaos that is Diamond 1 over at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson. And if you're into Dungeons and Dragons, I suggest you check out There Will Be Dungeons, a live play show where I am a 5th edition barbarian. But also, if you're interested in learning how to dungeon master, you should check out DM Gives Inspiration, a podcast about 15 minutes a week.
Nice. Folks, I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. Everything I do can be found at amove.tv. My new WoW podcast, WoW Killer, is back. And I know that's a confusing statement, but we started it like right before the holiday break, and then we went on holiday break. So 2 episodes went up before 2020, and now we're back. Episode 3 is up. You can listen to Taliesin and myself talk about and lightly, friendly debate what we think are the worst and best patches over the history of World of Warcraft since 8.3 is coming out next week. That episode is up on feeds right now, as well as episode 1 and 2. Go find WoW Killer wherever podcasts can be found. That's going to wrap it up for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Kyle and I will be back next Thursday, but until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.
Thank you.